In today's video, we're going to be creating a night scene using Colorado Craft Company Mouse House. Hi, I'm Stacy. Welcome to my channel. I hope you enjoy and are inspired to create. We're going to jump right in and get started. This right here, I'm showing you the stamp set from 3C's Colorado Craft Company. It's called Mouse House, probably because there's already a house mouse. And I'm going to go ahead and take an image from this, or I took the images that I'm using and I stamped them out on copy paper. And I'm showing you how I'm making a mask out of copy paper and two-way zig glue pin. I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut this one on camera. The rest I do off camera because nobody wants to see me fussy cut, right? I just wanted to show you that it's pretty simple to cut copy paper compared to cardstock, or I mean it's easier. It's like cutting wrapping paper as long as you have sharp scissors. And I'm cutting right on the line because I don't want halos around the mice since I'm going to be ink blending on some of this background. And you know, I cut the tail right off because it doesn't matter. It's a solid line and it's going to be in front anyway. And so you just try to move the paper more than you do your scissors. You know, sometimes I'm more successful in that than others, but as long as you can get it fussy cut, that's all that matters, right? But if you're doing it for an image that's going on a card, it is better to move the cardstock rather than your scissors because you'll get a cleaner cut. And then I had to go back in here and trim a little piece off around its belly so I didn't get any haloing effect. And then here's that zig two-way glue pin. If you put it on and use it immediately and attach it to your project, it will dry permanent. If you put it on the back of or you put it on and let it dry, it becomes repositionable. So, and then I just use my finger to spread it out and get a good coat, even coat on the back. And then I set it to the side to dry. And so here I'm bringing in this moon mask, the circle mask, to help me position the stamp. And I use the packaging since it has it printed on there. And I fiddle with it a bit, get it where I want it on the card. And this is a 5x7 card. And then since I want the mice to be in the foreground, they need to go first. But I need to figure out where exactly I want everything positioned. So I put the mouse house down and then the mouse on top standing on the roof, and I'm stamping that mouse first, and then I'm going to bring my mask in and we're going to mask it. See, and that's helping me position it. And then I don't do that yet, sorry guys. I put the image back down, the little house, so I can position the other mice where I want them. And then I set them down, pick them up on my Misty door and pull that off and then make sure they're attached well. And then I'm going to stamp those out. And then I'm going to mask them. And I rub the mask on the back of my hand or arm or even my pants, or, you know, you can rub it on a paper towel. Maybe not so much that it might pick up too much, but a microfiber towel just to get rid of some of that tackiness. See how I'm putting that on the back of my hand just to remove some of the tackiness. And then I'm going to position those. And then here we're going to go back in with the main image, the large image, and then I'm going to position that over the mice and get it where I want it. And I'm really trying to make sure that the mouse that's standing on the roof, that its feet are actually making contact with the roof of the little house. That's why I was picking it up and looking at it, and I was trying not to shove my head into the scene. And then I'm going to stamp that out. And around the paper, the mask, typically it will ink up right up to the line, especially if you cut on the line of your mask. But double check that area, and you know, if you need to add a little bit more pressure. if you don't get that there, that's fine. Later on you can back in with a pen or a marker and touch it up. And then I'm using that Lawn Fawn Night Scene stencil. It's like a multi-part stencil. So I'm putting the mask that's the part for the moon for that stencil down, and I just use a piece of Post-it tape, and I'm going in with my Distress ink. So I want the moon to glow. So I'm going in with that Squeeze Lemonade because it's super bright, and then the fossilized amber a little bit on top of that. And then the Spilled Lavender, you may be able to do it without it because it didn't do much, but I wanted to work that purple over the yellow and not have it completely cover it up where like it's shining through. And then I bring that Seedless Preserves in, which is a darker purple. It's a more saturated purple. And I'm just working that around. And I'm going to work these colors, and I believe I bring Chip Sapphire in, or Chip Sapphire? Pretty sure. I'll show you. And when you work that and you layer them, it made that Seedless Preserves a whole different color. So I just worked the blend from each color into each other, and I'll go back over them again. The copy paper holds up pretty well to inking over it, because I've done this many a times. It can, if you want to reuse them, I've done it before, but if you're going to do heavy inking, I probably wouldn't. I'd just toss them. Because there's no coating, it can seep through, they can get too wet. And then I pulled that moon mask up and cleaned it because I didn't want to take the ink that was on top of it and, contaminate into the outer portion of the moon, because I didn't want that yellow to get covered up with the darker purples completely, or the Chip Sapphire. And then you saw me bring in that little ink cube is black soot. I need to get some more of the larger ink pads. I started with the little minis and they work and you can re-ink them, but I prefer the larger ones just because it's easier if you're doing bigger backgrounds to ink it up. And then there was some PH Martins. There's like an iridescent silver. You saw it freezed on the screen. And then the bleed proof white. It's acrylic ink, I believe. And then I watered it down a hair. Not too much because I want them to actually hold up to looking like stars. If I water them down too much, they're going to absorb that ink from the background, especially because it's not dry. And I did the iridescent one first, and then I did the white. And then I'm using my heat tool to dry it because I didn't want to wait. I was impatient. And then I'm bringing that stencil in. And the Post-it note tape is simply just to kind of help hold it in place. I could have got my waffle flower grip mat out. I didn't feel like it. I was being lazy. And then I'm taking the Squeeze Lemonade and the fossilized amber. Is that what that is? Scattered straw, sorry. And I'm blending those in. I don't want it, I started with just what was on my blending brush, but it wasn't enough. I don't want it to be too heavy. I want it to just a little bit. And then I'm going to add those spots and then go back in and kind of blend over it. Which I was hoping it would blend it in and not make the spots so harsh, but it actually darkened them up because it layered more ink on top. And here I'm going to pull off the mask, and I slowed this down so you could see because I think it's like magic. It's the best part. It's the best part of when you do a scene and you're masking and then you ink blend over it. It's like, ooh, what are we going to get? Like opening a present for Christmas. And I'm just taking my time, and I'm using my little pokey tool there, so trying not to tear the paper. I haven't had it tear before. If you don't put the mask on your, get some of the tackiness off, it probably could. And I've never had it leave residue, so I'm cheap. So I just use my copy paper because I usually have it, and I use that two-way glue pen. And then I'm going to take this Y11 and I'm going to touch all the places on the image where I want highlights, like the moon's kissing it, and so it looks like it's glowing. In reality, a lot of the places I added it, there wouldn't have been moonlight hitting it, but I like the effect, so I went for it. And this is probably the first night scene that I've ever done that's this intensive. I did one other one that was nowhere as detailed as this one. So this for me was, I was kind of like all over the place. It was the middle of the night. And I just tried to enjoy the process, and I'm really pleased with how it came out. So, you know, get your stuff out, experiment. I'm always saying that, create, and sometimes you surprise yourself and things come out better than you pictured them, and other times they don't. This was one of the lucky times where it worked. And you know, that flower, I probably, to get more of that contrast and more of that glow, I may have done it a different color. I realized once I was coloring it in that the highlights were yellow, but I still think it stands up because it isn't such a warm yellow. The other yellows have a little bit more of like an orangey tone to them. That Y11 does not. So, and I just tried to use the, you know, where the shadows would be, you know, go darkest and then lightest, but it's not accurate. I mean, it really isn't, but I still think it came out really pretty. So where, you know, the petals overlap, I try to go in with my shading. Where they curved up, there probably wouldn't be no highlight there. You know, if the sun was coming from the other side, it might, but, or the sun, hey, the light, the light source, the moon. But I still like the way it came out. I still think it gave it some depth and dimension. So, I mean, I'm not a super realism, hyper realism, you know, colorist. And I still think the cards come out pretty. So don't get too hung up on your shadows. You know, just start coloring, and then as long as you're enjoying yourself, that's all that really matters, right? And I was like really pleased with how this came out. My husband came home. He had to do a split shift, and he came home, and he came up and he was like, "Oh, wow." And I wasn't even into that part of coloring yet. I was still doing the ink blending with the moon, and he was like, "Wow, that's so like bright and in your face. It was really cool." And I just take such joy in the fact that he takes such joy in seeing me create. And then I showed this to my son today, and he's like, "Wow." And then he's a little artist, and he starts saying, "I think you should have had some clouds in there. This is really good, Mom, really good. But I think it would have really stepped it up if you had some clouds in there, you know, maybe overlapping the moon a little bit." And I said, "But it's a clear sky. It's for the stars." And he's like, okay. And then he's like, for the ground, he's like, "I think it would have just stepped it up. It would have been really great if you added some like shrubs in the background." And I was like, "Bud, this was super ambitious for me, but those are great tips. I think I'll try them next time." He's like, "Good job, Mom. Good job." I just thought it was funny that his little artistic brain was like, "I think you should have done this." So there's some tips for my son. some suggestions if you decide you want to try to recreate this. Clouds and shrubs. And when I went in and I colored these, I thought they remind me of the shape of eggplants. And if you're easily offended, it's probably not the channel for you. My husband saw these, and I was like, when I was telling him how I was going to color them up, before he saw this, I said, "I'm going to use these, babe, and I'm going to color this up, and I'm going to, you know, try a scene in a different way. And I think I'm going to color them purples for eggplants, you know, because they remind me of the shape of eggplants." And even though he's a grown man, it's that, you know, juvenile brain in there. He's like, "Huh, eggplants, huh." And I was just like, "Great. Thanks, babe. I'm not going to be able to look at the card the same. And now you won't be able to either." It came out so pretty, I really don't care. But if you wanted to go the other way with this stamp set, you could. And when I'm shading this in, I'm trying just to add shadows where they're overlapping, and then where the highlights are, I want to bring that lightest violet color, I don't know if it's a BV or I think it was, up to the yellow and have it overlap a little bit because it'll like tone it down, but I want the edge to still be bright. So I didn't completely cover up the yellow. And when I did the top up there where the first, green cap is for it's probably a daisy or even a sunflower. I did go over the entire thing with the yellow, and it made a little bit of difference, but not enough for me to do that on every image or every portion of it. I kind of liked it when it had more of that contrast between the yellow and the color that it's highlighting. So, but you could take the entire yellow marker as your highlight and color over the entire thing, and it will give it a completely different look. I would test it on a scratch piece of paper and make sure you're not going to end up with mud because they will blend. They are translucent and they can make brown. But sometimes that's okay because a night scene would really not be as bright as I made it, but I like it. And then that door, I left the highlight there, and I kind of wish I would have left a little bit of that there, like it was cracked open, like the light from the inside was shining on the door and casting that glow. But as I kept going, I wasn't liking it, but when I watched this video back when I was editing it, I was like, oh, I actually kind of like that. So you could leave the door like that glow to make it look like the door is cracked open. And then when I went in with these BG markers, I just tried to add it to where the deepest shadows would be. And then I did some like stippling and tried to add a little bit of texture. And then the texture was a little bit too much for me. So I did go over it again with the markers, which knocked it back a bit, but the texture is still there, especially in real life. And I really like how that came out because of the little shrubbery that's growing up around the houses. I thought that kind of tied in with it. So are you guys going to give this a try? This was a lot of fun. Like to step outside my comfort zone. So if you haven't stepped outside your comfort zone, try it. Push yourself a little bit and see what happens. I've had many of things that didn't turn out. And then when I do have them work out where I'm happy with it, it really encourages me and makes me feel good and more encouraged to move on and try something different. So here's the completed card. I was trying to show you that there's Spectrum Noir clear glitter pen everywhere and it shimmers. So I added some to the moon and around the moon, and then I added it to the flowers and the windows a little bit heavier. And the sentiment and the embellishments. Thanks for spending some time with me. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.